say deductive is formal logic. To me, formal logic is lots of conditional statements, lots of technical language. Those are there's relatively fewer of these. These are the stimuli that look like nobody would ever actually talk like that in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we actually did an example in our recent session, Todd. This was a sufficient assumption question with Pteropsida and Hominidae. It's test for those who are interested in looking up old exams. This is test 35, section 1, question 22. Very formal question, lots of confusing terminology, but it's lots of conditionals. And so you can link them together and manipulate them to actually predict the conclusion technically, just by diagramming. That's deductive, where things are unambiguous. They're not like clear in that they're easy to understand, but it's clear in that there's no room for any margin of error. It's unlike inductive reasoning, which is more informal and more related to the real world. Those are the questions about car accidents and speed limits, or heart disease and blood pressure, or dinosaur extinction. The latter category I just mentioned, those are more real world type situations where there's more likely to be alternative possibilities and alternative explanations, and you could really argue about these things. So when Todd was saying that the conclusion is not guaranteed, that's where alternatives potentially come into play. And so yes, I do think about these. I'd say the vast majority are informal and inductive, where there is room to problematize the conclusion, even if the evidence is given. But for deductive, it's more mathematical, more likely that you can diagram it. And so I think the distinction is useful, but it's one of those things where you know it when you see it. Mm-hmm. And you can act accordingly. You can diagram or not diagram accordingly. And I would not diagram inductive arguments, meaning I would not diagram the vast majority of logical reasoning questions. Well, my suggestion would be don't diagram the inductive reasoning questions, and know that the vast majority are inductive, so you should not diagram the vast majority.
Right. Okay.
And students tend to diagram much more than is useful, but diagramming is not a substitute for thinking, and it's not going to give you a lot extra in most cases. The few questions that are more deductive, where diagramming is more useful, would be some sufficient assumption questions, some must be trues, and some parallels. But everything else, like strengthen, weaken, necessary assumption, I would never diagram those. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.